Dyslexia is a well-known disorder today, but do we know how it affects the people around us? I'm very close to someone who has dyslexia, and I've had conversations with them about how it affects them. In this speech, I will cover the definition, educational difficulties, social aspects, and ways to overcome dyslexia. And this picture is a common description of what dyslexia is. So, for the definition and symptoms of dyslexia, dyslexia is a learning disorder that involves difficulty due to problems identifying speech sounds. It occurs in children with normal vision and intelligence. It's also called a reading disability because it affects the brain and how it processes language. Symptoms of this disorder include late talking, learning slowly, delay in reading, and 5 to 10% of all Americans have some form of dyslexia, such as slow reading, trouble spelling, mixing up words, and although it is usually diagnosed early in life, adults can be diagnosed. Some of the educational difficulties are problems that teachers have and face. Patients must work harder in school. These people must work harder not because they are less intelligent, but because their brains learn differently. When the material becomes harder, students fall behind. This happens as you age. It stems from a problem with processing information. Although when you are young, you can read at grade level, as the material gets harder, it's harder to keep up. Another challenge is no one experiences it the same. Teaching strategies must conform to the certain student. Some social aspects are the way it affects anxiety. We must communicate clearly so that students do not fall behind. Anxiety is when a student, for example, it's when a student has a test coming up and they know that they won't have enough time to study or enough time to finish. Some students struggle with not living up to expectation because they feel that they are dumb or cannot understand. Most people with dyslexia appear lazy or careless, but really it's just built up frustration from not being able to understand. People with dyslexia are 35% more likely to drop out of high school, and 30% of all dropouts have some form of learning disability. Now that we know more about dyslexia, these are some ways to overcome it. Students must communicate clearly with their teachers and parents so that it will help everyone in this situation. It will let them know your problems and what you struggle with so they can better prepare themselves to help you. Understanding how you learn is one of the best ways to overcome dyslexia. Tutoring and help from adults who understand the disorder can help you entirely. Trying less at school is one of the biggest problems for students with dyslexia. Although they may feel like they're behind or they can't keep up, in order to succeed, they must work extra hard. They must set aside time for tutoring and reading. This will benefit the students the most. It is also good to start as soon as possible. So, dyslexia is a learning disability that affects everyone differently. There are different ways to cope in school, but the main way is to improve and to tell adults how you have a problem. There are many emotional strains on people with dyslexia. They have trouble interacting socially, and dyslexia is chronic, which means it cannot be cured. But there are ways to cope, and it is good to start as soon as possible. Many difficulties that are brought with dyslexia is schoolwork, emotional strain, social aspects, But there are ways such as communication, tutoring, and extra work and time that can help overcome it.